Well, he was a player for the Miami Dolphins, spent 2 decades with the Arizona Cardinals. He's a friend. He worked as a scout all the way up to a GM from 2013 to 2022. Steve Keim is joining us on an incredibly emotional, wild night. I said in my preamble, considering, 9/11, the emotion in the city, Aaron Rodgers' debut. I mean, it was a tense evening. Aaron goes down, and to put in a backup who didn't get a lot of snaps with Aaron because Aaron's trying to get all these young receivers aligned with him, and to force Josh Allen into 4 turnovers. I thought they ran the clock, used it very efficiently in regulation. I thought Saleh and his staff, Steve, considering, the timing of the injury, you're kind of, a curveball is completely thrown at you. And I've got to be honest, I thought they played really under control. I thought Saleh deserved credit. That was my takeaway. Your thought on just the Jets win?
Yeah, same, Colin. And what a start to Monday Night Football. Wow. So many storylines and excitement tonight. The one thing that I'll say is I think you nailed it. Coach Saleh did a great job, especially jumping back from the adversity that they had to handle at the beginning of the game. I mean, after you lose your quarterback after the fourth snap, I mean, how hard is that for a team, knowing that the stadium's sort of deflated. But I think the story tonight is the New York Jets defense. And quite frankly, I think the best quarterback that played for the Jets was Josh Allen.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you remember very well, Josh at Wyoming was a wild, out of control, but talented player. First year in the NFL, much the same. Daboll sandpapers him, refines him. I got to tell you, now he's been away for over 12, 15 months from Daboll. His mechanics, a lot of sidearm stuff. He's not sliding. Impatient. Steve, did you see? I mean, coordinators matter in this league a lot. We saw what Kyle Shanahan did to Matt Ryan. Right. I thought Josh was impatient tonight and sloppy at times.
I agree with you 100% and really disappointed, with particularly his second half performance. I mean, a guy that can improvise like that with his legs, with his arm, all those are great qualities. But if you can't play under control and you can't have the attention to detail that's necessary for that position to succeed, you're going to be put in a tough spot. And tonight, turning the ball over 4 times, the way they played in the second half to me is just unacceptable.
So an Achilles injury, Robert Saleh said it's not good. This schedule is at Dallas, New England, Kansas City, which could be in a bad mood if they lose to Jacksonville, at Denver, Philly, then a bye week. Zach and Aaron both have excellent arms. They can both move. How much of the offense do you change? I mean, let's be clear here. They relied on the run tonight, and I think they would have to a large degree if Aaron would have stayed in the game. Yeah. How much, as a general manager, you tell me, would you go down to Robert Saleh? Do we need a trade? What can I do for you? What do you think the team dynamic, the game plans would change for Hackett?
I think you're going to have to get a pulse from the head coach and the offensive coordinator. Can this guy really do it for us? Obviously, bringing in Aaron, he was going to be the key to sort of put them in that predicament to be in the Super Bowl this year. And now that they lost him, how critical is that? It reminds me when in 2014 we were 8-1, Colin, and I had just given Carson Palmer a 3-year extension on a Friday. That Sunday he tore his ACL. That year we went to the playoffs, but without Carson Palmer, we had no real chance. Ended up playing with Ryan Lindley after Drew Stanton got hurt. So a very exciting year for us, the way we started at 8-1, ending up losing our franchise quarterback after, like I said, extending him for 3 years was really, really a pit in my stomach. And I know the whole city of New York, I have to feel for them, to feel like they got the guy. And hopefully it's not as bad as being reported. But you're going to have to prepare, particularly now with the second quarterback, that if Zach Wilson goes down. But it's going to change the game plan. It's, Aaron Rodgers, I guarantee you, was so involved in those discussions about what they were going to do schematically. Now Zach Wilson is in a much different predicament. And they're going to have to sort of tighten the reins up, try to run the football a little more effectively, and just hope that defense can continue to keep them in games.
So a torn Achilles for Aaron Rodgers.
Oh no! Wow.
It's not good. So a torn Achilles is that out for the season
Oh yeah.
generally?
Yeah, if he'll unless something happened where that it's still attached to some degree, more than likely. And I've torn my Achilles. It's a 9 to 11 month surgical process.
Oh my God, that is gutting.
And generally, the second year coming off an Achilles is really tough because it's even worse than that, in my opinion. And I'm not a doctor, obviously, but the ACL is a tough one to come back from right away. But the Achilles is really, really difficult.
Does it make it worse because he's an older quarterback, 39?
No question about it. I mean, obviously, and I said this at the end of my career as a general manager. I mean, it was no secret that older guys got hurt more often. And then now all of a sudden you're coming off that. It's going to be a grueling rehabilitation process. And that is also probably going to test how much he really wants to come back and loves it.
That's a great point. I've had talked to pro athletes. Rehab early in your career, it's a very optimistic, a hopeful process. It's a very negative process late in a career, especially when you've got $100 million net worth. It's hard. I mean, did you see the mental wear on players, older players that had to overcome rehab?
Oh yeah, it really was grueling for those guys, and it, like you said, a lot of the financial stability is a big difference for those guys because they don't technically have to get off the couch anymore. They have the flexibility to take some time off and to let their body heal. In this situation, to me, what's really deflating, as much as the physical part, would be to me a little bit about how he's going to deal with this mentally, because there was so much excitement being in New York, getting a fresh start, being on Hard Knocks and all that was made of it. And he looked like a rejuvenated guy on the Hard Knocks to me. So now to see him take this setback, and who knows how it pans out for the team, but it's obviously, if Zach Wilson can give a gritty performance each week like he did tonight, that's outstanding. But is that going to be really good enough, Colin, to win enough games? Like, really?
Yeah, I just listen. We looked at the schedule: at Dallas, New England, Kansas City, at Denver, Philadelphia. And by the way, even after the break, it's a lot of road games. It's at Vegas, at Buffalo. The Chargers at home. There's some really good quarterbacks. They face Tua twice. I think Mac Jones is underrated. Deshaun Watson, Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Dak, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert. Listen,
good as that defense is, they're going to get some points scored against them.
Yeah, and also remember with that O-line, the defense is going to be on the field for a majority of the time. I don't think the Jets are going to be an offense that wins time of possession a lot with Zach Wilson. So a defense over the course of 35 minutes, 33 minutes, week after week, guys get hurt, get worn down. Suddenly by week 8, it's not the same defense. You're missing a corner, one of your edge rushers. Football is officially back. No more preseason games. The regular season is here. Listen, we all like watching football on TV, but nothing's better live and in person. And the best way to get tickets to any of these games is at Game Time, the fastest growing ticket app in the entire United States. For last minute amazing deals on tickets to see your favorite football team in September, download Game Time. And it's not just for football. Baseball playoff games, comedy shows, concerts all across the country. Download the Game Time app and use the redeem code Colin, COLIN, $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Get out and have some fun this weekend, baby. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets. Lowest prices guaranteed. Game Time. So offensive coaches were 4-1 against defensive coaches this weekend. I just think defensive coaches don't have the same sensibility. Even Bill Belichick naming a DC as an OC, it's felt tone deaf to me. And I think Bill's a genius. But last draft they drafted 3 guards and 2 kickers, and they're one of the slowest teams in the league. It's like, Bill, come on, the world's changed here. It's pivoted to offense. Are you concerned at all about, if you look at the end of last year, if you look at the playoff game, if you look at tonight, teams, these windows are tight where you have the perfect staff. Leslie Frazier now, I'm out. That concerns me. Stephon Diggs. Steve, I don't love the vibe right now with Buffalo. Am I overreacting to it, from last year to this year?
I don't think so. I think that, again, you said it best. When he had Brian Daboll, I sort of think that he did the right things with him and put him in a predicament where he could have success, not only schematically, but what he asked him to do. Now I think they're in a predicament where they're going to sit there and look and say, listen, you have got to take care of the football. And that was his not coming out. I went and saw him play several times in college and love his talent and his skill set, which was obviously on display tonight at times. But then when you get careless with the football and you make some of the poor decisions reading the field, it is going to put you in a tough predicament to win any football game in the NFL by turning it over 4 times.
Yeah. I want to touch on 2 or 3 other stories over the weekend. You looked at Brock Purdy at Iowa State, a multi-year starter. I've always said he's coachable and capable. And then I watched him against Pittsburgh, and he moved better than I thought. He didn't train much in the offseason with the elbow surgery. And I looked at the game plan that Kyle Shanahan implemented on the road as an underdog against the Steelers. They threw the ball down the field. They were hyper-aggressive. I didn't think Pittsburgh had nearly as aggressive a game plan for Kenny Pickett, a first-round pick at home. Go back to your scouting on Brock Purdy. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan matters, but did you like him? Are you surprised at what you're seeing? I thought he was tremendous on the road.
I think everybody would be surprised considering the fact that he was a late-round pick. I mean, in worst case, for me even, he grew up about 10 miles away from here in Queen Creek, Arizona. So he's a local kid and obviously doing amazing things. But he's the typical guy, Colin, in the scouting report that we all pick apart. Not big enough, not a live enough arm, doesn't have the skill set you look for, plays within the system, we call it. Well, that's a really good thing, to play within the system and to be able to be coachable. What he has done is miraculous. I mean, he has been phenomenal in every way. His patience, his accuracy, his timing, his anticipation, all those things that are really more of the ability to see the field and to make the quick decisions. Same thing that Tua is doing in Miami. Another guy that doesn't have all the great physical traits, but is doing a lot of good things, seeing the field and playing with anticipation. A lot of things Kurt Warner did for us, another guy that was not overly gifted physically.
It's interesting, Steve. We tend to think kids go from high school to college and then they really blossom. Look at Aaron Rodgers. I remember when he came out of Cal, he was mechanical. Tom Brady, Eric Mangini laughs. They used to bet money on the side that he couldn't make certain throws. Brock Purdy. I think sometimes, and I'm guilty of this, we forget these are not finished products. A Trevor Lawrence or an Andrew Luck are. Kyler Murray obviously is gifted. But a lot of it depends on where you land. And, you land with Kyle Shanahan. You've had offensive coaches, Cliff Kingsbury, Bruce Arians, Ken Wisenhunt. I do think in 2023 an offensive head coach is an advantage.
Yeah,
Steve,
and I totally agree,
do.
Colin. And I think for a number of reasons. I think number one, just from the standpoint for me of what you said, you have success with Daboll and Josh Allen, you lose Daboll. Now all of a sudden you're starting over again. To me, if you want to have sustainable success, and that's to me something that the Chargers have to look at. If the Chargers want to have sustainable success with Herbert, they have got to figure out what they can do to put him in the best position to win football games. Because right now is his prime. And to me, again, when you lock up a good offensive coach with a good quarterback for years, you can have sustainable success. But if you don't do that, you're going to lose a good coordinator if your quarterback's having success.
That's right. And so if you're a defensive coach, those offensive coaches are getting the job interviews that defensive coordinators are no longer getting. So if Kellen Moore, after 2 good years with Herbert, if he's not given that job, he could go back to Dallas. He's going to get a head job somewhere. So to your point, you hire the offensive guy, your coordinator leaves. I still got an offensive guy in the room running the show. Sean Payton, Russell Wilson, here's what jumps out to me. I saw a study recently that it said opposites may briefly attract, but they looked at these relationships over 10, 20 years, and they said they don't stay together. You have to have commonality in a relationship, same music, same food, same sort of vibe, your sleep patterns. Do you eat healthy? 80 to 85%, if you have commonality, those relationships last. We just say opposites attract. They may attract, they don't work together. Russell Wilson's personality is the opposite of Sean Payton. Sean Payton is critical.
Yeah.
He is harsh. I love him. He's funny.
Yes.
He's authentic. He's raw. He's sometimes inappropriate.
Right.
Russell's polished, refined, almost overly optimistic and hopeful. And my takeaway is they're opposites. It works with wins. These close losses I watched this weekend, I'm not saying, Steve, that Russell's washed, but the game plan underneath, it was as if Sean didn't really trust him. I'm not saying washed, but there's so many great players,
right.
The Lamars and the Herberts.
Yeah.
I didn't see a lot of juice, and that contract's $48 large next year on.
Right.
Are you concerned at all about the relationship, the personality, the limitations?
I think you nailed it. I'm a huge Sean Payton fan. I think he's one of the best coaches in the National Football League and certainly one of the best play callers. I think Sean, just personally, and this is just my opinion, is going to have very little patience here in this situation. Like you said, they want to make it work. Obviously, the financial demands and the contract that was put in place is going to be putting him in a very tough position, or the club in a tough position. But at the same time, knowing Sean Payton, knowing the competitor he is, knowing the football mind that he has, I think the amount of patience that he's going to display, if this continues, is going to be very, very short.
One final point. Was there a week one performance, good or bad, that shocked you, Steve Keim?
No, 100%. Jordan Love. I mean, I don't want to say he played a flawless football game, but, you would have thought, in my opinion, that maybe that's where Chicago would have been, where they would have had a little more time now with the quarterback situation. Jordan Love was sort of the unknown. I was a guy who didn't really know if I believe in him. And again, it's one game, but in this one game sample size, he did some really good things.
Yeah. I will say this. Offensive coach, good O-line run game. They scored on their first possession and the first possession of the second half. So much of that, Steve, about Jordan Love was, I said this today, quarterback in the NFL, it's calculus, and it always helps to have a good tutor when you're a young person with calculus. And it's like the Packers, LaFleur, the O-line. It's like they have a really good tutor. I feel a little bit like Justin Fields. It's a little hero ball. He's on his own out there. Defensive
right.
coach, O-line struggles. And I'm not banging on Matt Eberflus, but again, the offensive coach, you're taking over for a franchise with a winning momentum.
Right.
Right? Like,
if you're going defense nowadays, Colin, if you're going defense, and I know there are some outliers out there, but if you're going a young defensive coach nowadays, he better be a special leader.
Right.
Like a game changer.
Like Dan Quinn, I think, will get another look. I think he's really, I think Dan Quinn. I thought Brian Flores was really good. His personality is very brusque. I think there's some guys, obviously McDermott's been a very successful coach. Mike Tomlin has leadership skills.
Yep.
But I think, to your point, if I was a general manager, listen, this sounds ridiculous, but I think Brandon Staley, listen, that's the number one defensive payroll in the league. They have a Bosa on the edge.
Right.
They are third worst team in the league.
So you can't score 34 points and get outscored and be the defensive head coach. That's not good.
They're a terrible third down defense with a Bosa on the edge.
Right.
Like, that's just you got to get people. That's just like a gift from the heavens. You get a Bosa on the edge. There's only two of them. They're both great.